people don't want to leave, to where we're giving our employees the resources, the support, and the things that they need so that they can continue to grow within our organizations without feeling like they need to move elsewhere or deciding they want to leave local government in order to kind of achieve the goals that they have. So before we get started, I see people introducing each other in the chat. Please feel free to do that. We've got people from all over the place here. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. And also feel free if you want to show your cameras, love to see your faces as well. And if you have any questions, please feel free to just pop anything in that chat there. I will be taking a look at this chat throughout, and I may even, engage with what you're saying in that chat right then and there, because this is more of a conversation and less of a, me talking at you for an hour type of a presentation. How does that sound, everybody? All right.
Sounds good.
Now, we've got people from all over the place. I'm seeing people from everywhere from, I see Austin and Corsicana, and I see people from Gun Barrel City and Sedona. And so you're from all over the place. I'm located here in San Antonio, Texas. I've been here for the last year, over a year now. And I came from Colorado is where I was living before. And so one of the things in Polco research, let me first of all let you know where this research is coming from, where the data are coming from, and what my organization actually is. Polco is a government technology firm that serves the information needs of the public sector, and we bring data to decision makers, and we bring the resident voice into all of this decision-making process. And we do this through everything from public opinion surveys and community surveys and polls to interactive engagement simulations for budget decisions, as well as the local government workplace. We do workplace assessments. We have the National Employee Survey, which is a survey only of local government employees that assesses the workplace climate. It is a benchmarking survey. So there are reports that provide context as to how your organization compares to peer organizations across the United States. And there are thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of local government employees nationwide that have participated in this assessment. And that's where these data are going to come from today. From local governments specifically, it does not incorporate data from the private sector. So that's one thing that's going to make this really focus in for this group that we're going to be able to talk about. So that's called the National Employee Survey. And there's a few different things that we wanted to understand when it came to things like retention, when it comes to job satisfaction in the government workspace. We wanted to understand, what is government doing well? What are the things that we should continue to do as HR leaders in the public sector? What are the things that we need to improve upon as a whole? And then what are the things that are the key drivers of having happy, engaged employees and employees that have made the decision to stay in their organization? What are the key drivers to make a decision like that? So I want to get started with see if we can do a guessing game, a little chat exercise, thinking about all of the different areas in the workplace, everything from compensation to the physical environment to the opportunities for benefits and things like that. Whatever the many very facets of the workplace. What do you think that local government workplaces do the best at? So you can just put those things, those guesses in the chat. And then once we get a few of those going, I'll read a few of them, and then I'll reveal what our research shows are the top things that government workplaces, where they score the highest. So we've got work-life balance. Thanks, Robert. Yep. We've got stability, sense of purpose, flexibility in schedule. We've got, so when y'all say stability, you mean that it's a stable job that you don't worry about having to get laid off all the time, like in the private sector, right? Is that what you mean? We've got work-life balance again, retirement and benefits, some great things. Yes. And that's a good point, Christina. Layoffs are rare, but they do happen. Yes. Thank you so much for sharing. Go ahead, Shannon.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to unmute.
Oh, okay. All right. Angie would argue that work-life balance and flexibility of schedule is something new, that we haven't always been like that. You are also correct. Things have been changing since the pandemic, and the workplace looks a lot different than it did even 5 years ago. All right. Are y'all ready for me to reveal from our research, our very recent research, where local government workplaces score the highest, according to employees? All right, let me know if any of this surprises you. Number one is maintaining a work environment that is free of drug or alcohol abuse. So we have workplaces where people feel that they are not being influenced or held back by those types of harmful, toxic type of work environments. That's great. Number two is valuing employees from diverse backgrounds. That local government does a good job in general of helping those employees of diverse backgrounds feel welcome, feel valued. That's fantastic. And that is something that has not always been the case. This is something that in our more recent studies, the government has been improving on. So we love to see it. And number three is maintaining a work environment that is free of violence or harassment. That's also wonderful to see. Now, in other research that we've done, and we're doing a project right now with ICMA to compare the differences between how men and women view the workplace. And we will be presenting the results of that study come at the ICMA conference in the fall. But we do this study, we update it every 5 years. And one thing that's interesting is that in general, women and men see the workplace differently when it comes to violence and harassment. They have different opinions on that. But the good news is every time we conduct that study, we see less and less instances of this being reported on the surveys. So that's wonderful to see as well. And we're seeing that trend continue with our latest research here. So I'd like to give everyone, this is something that people can really be proud of and really continue to grow upon and really continue to focus on within local government. The things that are working, we want to continue to see those things working. All right, now let's talk about the converse, the flip side. The things that local government scores the lowest on, according to employees nationwide. Let's take a look at the chat again and let me know, what are the things that y'all think government needs to improve upon in order to raise these scores in the workplace? Again, anything from the physical environment to management to compensation, as Amy says, and Tanya, compensation. Robert says employee engagement. We've got pay from Lynn. Elizabeth says comp. Yep. We've got some really on the nose guesses in here. Advancement opportunities, managing through change, right? I think we start to get into things like trauma-informed leadership and other things that are emerging sciences in HR. Professional development opportunities, leadership. These are really good guesses. And the thing is, too, is I'm telling you national aggregate data. Each individual organization may have differences. So these are things that are important to understand nationally and consider how it impacts your own organization. But I'm also going to encourage people to understand their own organization and the unique challenges that you may have there as well. Retaining star employees, that is huge. Retention. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and reveal the 3 weakest scores in the local government workplace as a whole. Number 1 is connection between compensation and performance. So those of you who said compensation, you were correct. And not just compensation on its own, but that connection between compensation and performance. So one of the things we began to see with these quit rates rising high is people were starting to feel burned out, or they were giving in a lot of extra time, a lot of effort, a lot of excellence, but their compensation did not match the level of work that they were putting in. And for a lot of people, that led to their decision to leave their organization because the compensation did not match what they felt they deserved as the level of effort, excellence, and work that they were putting into their organization. Lynn, do you have a comment? Would you like to share your thoughts about that? Okay. Sorry, I thought I heard you trying to chime in. Feel free to chime in, anybody, and you're welcome to jump in and share your thoughts. So the second one is managing low performing employees.
That's why she didn't put years out there, because it was so long ago.
Across the board, this is a challenge in the local government workplace. Almost every participating local government in the survey study, this was one of the number one challenges, one of the lowest scoring areas was managing low performing employees. This also contributes to the retention challenges that we have in local government, where let's say you are a high performer. Let's say you are putting in extra time and you feel your compensation is low. But then here's somebody next to you who makes the same amount of money that you do, and they are not contributing. Maybe they're not even contributing half of what you are, right? Again, you don't necessarily know what's going on with that other person, but these are internal dialogues that are happening, right? This is what this survey is showing is coming up. So you might say, you know what? This organization lets us get away with anything. This person can be completely slacking off and there's no repercussion. They're getting paid the same as I am and I'm doing twice the amount of work. Why should I stay? Right? Why should I stay in an organization like that? And this is something that across the board, even the private sector struggles with this. Everyone struggles with this. So no organization is alone in this one. This one is a tough one. It requires courageous conversations, and it's something that, you know, is common everywhere. And number 3 is collaboration between departments. And this one, again, across the board, is a challenge in all organizations, that not only collaboration, but communication across departments. Oftentimes, we don't even know what other departments are doing. Robert says, man, I'm 0 for 2 so far. And Peggy says, is this data indicate what levels these employees are within the organization? They're within all levels of we can break it down by title in this particular report that I have together for you guys, and I'm going to email it to you later. I'm not breaking it down in that way, but yes, we do study all levels of employees within the organization, and we also have breakdowns where we can look at like different title areas. Because you're wondering, is the frustration being expressed by supervisors and above, or if line staff are feeling the same? You know, one thing that's interesting is a lot of times people are feeling the same at all different levels, which is interesting. Another thing that we also will do is we'll compare and say, how is this impacting service delivery in the community? So we'll say, all right, government staff are feeling this way, or they're feeling these services are more important or less important, or that these are performing however they're reporting according to the staff. But how does that impact the resident perspective then of the people that they're serving? Are they lined up or are they not? So that's also something that's really interesting to see. And then Elizabeth says, I agree with that. The sentiments are across the board, not just at one level. Yes, that's what our data have shown us. Again, like I said, these are aggregate results here. So it's always a good idea to assess your own workplace and find out, because there can be places where one level is thinking one way and another level is thinking another way. And that can also be between departments, right? So you might be seeing in your own organization, one department might feel differently than another department does. But one of the things that we see between departments is we don't collaborate all that great between each other. Like, we don't know what each other's departments are doing. We may not even know who the staff are. We may not have ever heard of or seen the people that work in another department, and we've maybe never have even worked with them in their life. We've never been in a meeting with them. We've never been in an office party or anything. We just have no idea what's going on in a different department. We may have no idea what's going on in the public safety department, and we're in the city management office or something. Or we're in the Parks and Rec department. We don't know what's going on in the health department. So that is something that we're seeing pretty commonly. Now, this is worse in larger communities, larger cities, where there may be a lot more staff, a lot more different departments. So that can definitely vary. We see a lot of times in the very small ones, the smaller you are, the better off you are going to be as far as knowing your other departments, what's going on in your other departments, just because of that size is not a barrier in that way. Angie says, just completed my PhD, and all levels of employees are leaving municipal governments in droves because the employees don't have great relationships with their supervisors. Research was done in North Texas, but as I talked to others around the country, they felt the same. Exactly. We have found exactly the same thing. We have definitely found that. So let's talk about, I have some results on local government approval ratings. But I also want to talk more about these key drivers of employee engagement and these key drivers of employee retention. Because when we find that when employees are engaged, they are also less likely to quit their job. They are also more likely to be happy at the job that they have, and they have healthier relationships. It's interesting that we talk about the relationship between supervisors. We also find that when people have friends at work, they're more likely to stay at their job and to be happier at their job just because they have friends at work. So that connection piece, that collaboration piece, you can have, if you have friends at work, but they're in another department, that still counts. It still counts. So let's talk about some of these drivers of employee engagement. And when someone is really engaged, they feel like their organization is reciprocating and appreciating them. All right. Number one is, I see a career path for me at this organization. If someone has opportunities to advance at the organization they already are, they're more willing to stay and to be engaged. Opportunities to advance. What do y'all think about that? Does that surprise anyone, or is that something that you've seen in your organizations as well? I see this a lot in our research look of trying to understand the experience between men and women and people of color and things like that. uh, those organizations that are doing the best job at creating a welcoming workplace are also promoting people and women. Not only are they welcoming them in, but they're giving them opportunities to promote. And there's no wrong answer, Robert. Because again, too, at your own organization, that might be a little bit different from the national averages, right? And that's okay. Young professionals are not interested in being stagnant in their position, and they want the ability to learn and grow, says Angie. You're spot on. Absolutely. A lot of people leave, especially younger people, because they don't see an opportunity for them to grow and to advance and climb the ladder. What's the old saying? We can train them and they leave, or don't train them and they stay. Peggy says, no surprise here. We hear this from employees regularly, but we have requirements in our hiring processes to ensure current staff are aware of openings before they are recruited for outside of the organization, plus some other requirements. Oh, I like that. That's great. Making sure that they're aware, because that gives them an opportunity, right? If at least if you know about it, you had a chance to apply. We've started to create levels for advancement in some hard to fill positions, and positions have a great deal of turnover. Mm-hmm. Yes. I'm going to reveal the second one now as employee engagement driver. The mission makes me feel my job is important. This is one of those things a lot of times in other areas that I didn't put together in this report, but one thing that's interesting to me, most people think that local government is a good career, that it's a meaningful career. So this is something that government typically does well, but within your own role, you want to feel that your contributions matter in some way. And when we talk about communication and we talk about understanding what your individual role does for the rest of your organization, that can make a huge difference when it comes to having an engaged employee. Because otherwise, one is, okay, I know I work in government and yeah, it's important, whatever. But if you're plugging along and doing your thing and you don't understand the impact of what you just did on your organization and your community, you may not be so engaged. But if someone is making sure to communicate with you, right? If your HR department is saying, hey, the role that this department played, the role that you played over here, this project that you did had this impact in the end. Well, that might give you some insight into, wow, I understand how important my role is now. And it might even motivate me to do more, to do better, to do whatever I can to continue that progress, because now I see the end goal and I see that I made a difference, that my job is important. And the more important I am, the more needed I am, the more engaged I am. And we don't understand how important we are unless someone tells us, unless someone communicates that with us. So it's incredibly important not only to let people understand the impact of their work, but to show appreciation. We also find that appreciation is huge. And it doesn't have to be anything gigantic. It doesn't have to be a huge, award program where everyone gets a plaque and a ribbon and a speech and all this kind of stuff. It doesn't even have to be that. But recognition, especially from your supervisor, saying, thank you for what you did. You did a good job, is huge in motivating people. Now, I have some other data here, specifically about staff morale and organizational appreciation. About 65% of local government employees report a positive staff morale in the organization, 65%. That's not terrible, but we definitely have some room to grow there where there's a positive staff morale. And we also find there's that connection between appreciation. The more a government organization shows appreciation and communicates that, the higher staff morale goes, right? There's a correlation. We find that just barely over half of employees say their organization shows appreciation. Barely over half. So that means about half of our local government employees are doing their work and no one is saying thank you, and no one is communicating to them the impact that their work has. That's definitely something that we can improve upon, and it doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be a big to-do. Sometimes it's just your supervisor saying, hey, I saw that you did really good work on this project, and I want to thank you for that, and this is what we're going to do with it. Peggy says that is important for supervisors to understand. They are often so busy doing the work that they don't realize how critical they can be in sharing information like what you are stating about how the line staff work is connected with the mission. I find that the first line supervisors are not aware of these critical subjects, that they should be making an important part of the work they do. Absolutely, I completely agree. And the data agrees with you. Even if you incorporate these little things into your daily life, into your daily work life, and make it a habit of showing appreciation at every level, that's going to make a huge difference when it comes to staff morale and staff engagement and the decision for someone to stick around and rather than leave somewhere where they feel appreciated.
Oh, you're gone? Yeah.
Now, another one, number 3, is overall staff morale in my work group. So overall, what is the morale in your work group? How happy are people around you, your peers? The overall staff morale is a huge driver of employee engagement. And here's another thing too, is morale doesn't have to be something that's top down. That is also something that can be cultivated at any level. So if you have people who feel empowered to help become a driver of culture in the workplace, and they're not, the director, they can still have a huge impact. And because now you're giving them opportunities to be a leader of culture themselves, then they can help be more engaged and bring other people around them to be more engaged as well. So some of these things, it's not always just about what's going on in the director level or higher. Sometimes it's about creating these little opportunities for people to support each other and become leaders in that way. So talking about the overall staff morale in my own group, that can be people can bring each other up and we can also bring each other down. We've heard terms like energy vampire. If there's someone who's always negative about everything, they're always upset, and they bring that into the workplace, and we want to have empathy for people. But there are times too when we need to understand that as individuals, what's going on with our attitude and what's going on with how we present things to other folks and how we make each other feel, that can impact the other person too, right? So if we're being an energy vampire and negative about everything, that person next to us might be taking that on, especially if they're kind of an empathic person. They might be taking that on, and the vice versa is true as well. If someone's energetic and positive and doing their best to, when it was a bad day today, but you know what, we did our best. We're gonna do better tomorrow, right? That kind of an attitude versus, yeah, it was a bad day tomorrow. It's going to be a bad day to the next day. Every day's bad and I'm done. The difference between those type of interactions has a huge impact on how we feel at work and employee engagement. Angie says one of the challenges that different generations like different types of acknowledgements. We recently did a study in my last city, and while thank yous were sufficient for some of our longer tenured staff, other things were more motivating for our shorter term staff that were younger in age. I love that point. I love that so much. We do see differences between different age groups. in research. We see that people in general, overall, we want the same kinds of things, right? We want to be able to have opportunities. We want to feel welcome. We want compensation that matches with the level of effort that we put in there. But at the same time, there are things that people communicate differently in different generations, or we might have different expectations from our organizations in different generations. So it's incredibly useful to do a survey of your staff and ask those kinds of questions. What would make you feel appreciated? What would you like for me as your supervisor to do? How, as a supervisor, what can I do to communicate with you effectively and let you know when you're doing a great job, and to also let you know when I think there's areas for improvement, right? Both of those things. I think that's wonderful. And then also to be willing to listen when they give us that feedback. It may be hard to hear, but if we are able to let go of that personal knee-jerk reaction, that maybe a little bit of a damage to ego. Sometimes we hear things in research or about our own organization that stung, that stung, that hurt. But the thing is it's just data. It's not good or bad that it's data, but it's an opportunity for us to say, I hear you and I want to make it better, or I want to continue doing this or that. So even when it's tough, when you ask that question, don't just ask it and then walk away, because that damages trust. Why did you ask me in the first place if you weren't even going to listen to me? If you didn't care what I had to say, why did you ask me that question? We don't want to create that type of an environment either. So we have to be intentional. If I'm going to ask you the question and I'm going to get that type of information, that means the expectation for me as a leader is that I am going to follow through with it and I'm going to do it, or I'm going to do something about it, and I'll let you know along the way. Here's what we're doing. Susan says, would love to see some training for employees to learn how to accept constructive criticism from their supervisor, yes, as well as deliver it to your supervisor. Oh my gosh, yes. One of the things, Ron and I had a podcast episode a little while ago where we discussed some of these issues. And one of the things that he said was, Ron, you didn't tell me everyone was going to hate me when I took on this role. When I got promoted into the supervisor position, I didn't expect that everyone was going to hate me. But that's the thing, is we get into these roles and then we don't have training on how to have these kinds of conversations. We're throwing people into the wolves, saying, figure it out for yourself. And now, everyone hates me, right? But it doesn't have to be that way. It can be a healthy conversation between the two-way street there. It doesn't have to be that way. And so it's so important to have training and a lens there, and maybe sometimes even mediation. So that way people can both hear constructive criticism and also learn how to deliver it in a way that will be received. So, SGR, so Chris, I think that's you, Krisa. You say, Susan, we have some great options if you want more information. This is awesome. I love this. Yeah, email Krisa. She's going to send you more. You want to speak on that?
Absolutely, yeah. So when it comes to that specific type of training that you're just referencing, and what Susan posted about there in the chat, we have quite a few options for that at SGR. So we don't like to use these meetings, as a sales function or anything like that. So I'm not, pushing it overtly. But since you mentioned that, I did want to just throw out there, if anybody in this group wants information on some of the training we offer for supervisors, new supervisors or new team leads, management training, so on and so forth. We have a whole slew of options out there and happy to share those resources with you. So just shoot me an email and I will send that information over.
Love it. That's great.
Yeah, thank you.
So another driver of employee engagement is treating all employees fairly. Is that everyone feels that they're not having to deal with favoritism, and that they have equal opportunities, that their workplace is fair, that their leaders are fair. Peggy says, I think that perhaps the biggest factor in that issue, delivering or receiving constructive feedback, is trust. Amen. If there's a lack of trust, then it will always be more difficult. If there is strong trust, then it is much easier to navigate. Absolutely. Can't even say that enough, is how important trust is. All of these things too. If your staff does not trust you and does not trust leadership, which is going to get into this last point here, you got nothing. If they don't trust you, they're not safe. If they don't trust you, they're not going to engage. They're going to be trying to protect. They're going to be so busy protecting themselves rather than focusing on their job and focusing on how they can, survive in that workplace if they can't trust, because that's just the biggest debilitator of progress is lack of trust, and not only with our staff but with our residents. So a lot of you guessed this when we were saying what are those key drivers of employee engagement. Many of you brought this one up, and you are absolutely correct, that confidence in the leadership of my supervisor. Does my supervisor treat us fairly? Is my supervisor competent? Is my supervisor going to listen to me? Can I trust my supervisor? Does my supervisor communicate with me? All of these things. The way that your supervisor is as a leader is huge as far as employee engagement. Does my supervisor invest in me? Do they appreciate me? And when I'm saying invest in me, are they giving me the training and the resources and the information that I need to succeed in my role? Even if maybe one day I might supplant them? Is there fear that if I am getting better and better at my job that I'm going to take over that role? Or are they like trying to hoard information and not share anything because they're trying to protect their power or whatever? Or is that the perception? Or are they being welcoming and open and honest? Are they trustworthy? What about my supervisor? Again, it's so important that supervisors have the training that they need to be successful as well, and that they have support from their supervisors. And all of these things are connected directly with employee retention, because again, like I said, the more engaged our employees are, the more likely they are to stick around. And when we have talented, skilled employees, we want them to stick around. It's more expensive to start over and have high return. It costs us money. It costs us time and training. It costs a lot of issues when we have so much turnover that it can just really slow things down. So we want to retain our skilled employees, and we don't want them to feel like they have to be looking towards, maybe they want to stay in local government, but then they make that shift, right? We called it the Great Reshuffle. We found it wasn't really a great resignation. People weren't just quitting and not working. They were quitting their job here and picking up a job over here. They're moving over to a different city. So how can we say, look, there's still opportunities for you here? So number one is the same as employee engagement driver was, I see a career path for me at this organization. I see a career path. Once again, we see that again. If there is no opportunity for you to promote, well, then you might go somewhere else to find that opportunity to promote. Number two is protecting employees from hazards. We do a really good job of this in local government, as we saw before. We have high scores as far as keeping our workplaces safe. But if there are some kind of hazards that are going on, if it's physical or even mental health type of hazards, right? That is a key driver of retention. If we don't feel safe, we're going to move on. Also, is helping new employees feel connected and integrated. When we bring new people on, or when we promote people, or we move people into different teams, or even if they're in the team that they're in, there's not motion happening at that time. Our employees, when they're connected with each other and they're integrated with the whole, they're going to be so much more likely to stick around. Like I said earlier, when we have friends at work, we're more likely to want to stay. And we produce better too. We're more motivated, connected, integrated, engaged. These are the things that make huge differences for that decision to stay at your organization. And then I've got two more. And I'm gonna let you put in the chat what area of employee retention. What do you think are these last two? They're both related to the same general domain of the workplace. What do you think that is? Psychological safety. Oh, yes. What else?
Can you repeat the question one more time? Thanks, Angelica.
Yes, we've got two more key drivers of employee retention. They fall in the same category of the employee work experience. What do you think that category is? Is it pay? Shannon says pay. Robert says frequent and ongoing feedback. Peggy says telework. So flexibility. These are really good guesses. And these do matter. They're just not like the top tippy top. All right, I'll go ahead and reveal the answer to you. Once again, it comes down to leadership. The key drivers of employee retention is confidence in the leadership of senior staff and organizational leadership. Confidence in the leadership, and as well as confidence in the leadership of my supervisor. So not only my supervisor, but the organization overall, the organization leaders. Am I confident in them? Do I trust them? Robert says, that's it. I'm done answering questions. You were correct. Yes, that's correct. When we cultivate leaders, we create engagement. When we support our leaders and we teach our leaders on how to be a great leader, that is the key, the biggest key driver to employee retention. And I think, when you think about it, it definitely makes sense. Does anybody have any, does this surprise anyone here? Is anyone here thinking, okay, Angelica, you're crazy. That's all out of left field. Thanks. Yeah, you can put that on my my LinkedIn recommendations. Yeah, so I wasn't surprised either when I saw these. Peggy says no surprises at all, but so hard to do as we are so busy trying to do the work that we were hired to do, but so important. Oh my gosh, it's so true. And I think that's why this can be a challenge, right? I mean, if this was easy, everyone would be doing it. And we wouldn't be having this conversation. We wouldn't be having this HR track in the first place if this was easy. But the problem is it's not, and we're busy. All of you have a lot on your plate. A lot of you are doing double work. That's another thing. My research indicates that the majority of you do not have space on your plate to take on more work than you already are. Most of you don't. 13% of you do. That's pretty minority. So not only do we have to juggle heavy workloads, we also have to juggle and start to create space to think about how are we going to handle this leadership thing. Because hopefully if we can figure this out and if we can do this consistently, then hopefully it means that it's less work for us, right? Because if we're retaining people, at least we're not having to start all over again training those folks. If we are cultivating them as being leaders where they're at and potential leaders to move up and giving them more opportunities, maybe that just means more opportunities for me in my area of leadership to be able to say, you know what, this person, they've been here for 5 years, they know what they're doing, I trust them, and I'm going to take a step back here and let them take a step forward and take on some of that stuff off my plate. Wouldn't that be great? And other duties as assigned, says Pamela. Exactly. Now, I have a few other data points of just kind of how workplace approval ratings across different areas, domains of the workplace. We have about 10 different domains that we study, and there's a whole bunch of different metrics for each domain, but we have, a few minutes left. Let's see what other discussion points y'all do you want to dive into, or what questions might y'all have? Feel free to hop in that chat, or if you want to just vocalize, that's cool too.
I'll say this, Angelica, I was really impressed with some of the responses we were getting. It sounds like there's a lot of HR people out there being really proactive already, and that's really impressive to me to see. So I just want to give a big kudos and congratulations to you all. You're doing a great job.
Absolutely. And the folks that are here right now, you are the folks that are making the difference. You should really be proud of yourselves. So I know some of the stuff I'm sharing is doom and gloom, but you're the difference. What else?
Most of you, I mean, statistically speaking, at least one of you has some capacity left to take on more work.
Statistically speaking, that's right.
I'm totally joking. I'm gonna get some hate mail after this, maybe.
Girl, you're gonna get in trouble.
Test the boundaries occasionally. Well, if no one else has any comments or questions, I can go ahead and wrap us up because I know everyone's eager to jump back in there and get back to work. I think there was another.
Oh, we've got one in the chat from Peggy. Had to make it a priority to supervise my staff over the regular work I do and share with my supervisor respectfully that that was my focus. Yes.
It's definitely hard to prioritize that. I can feel that. I can relate to that for sure.
I've had to learn to do a better job of that myself too, where sometimes I have to put something on the calendar and honor it, where you can't put a meeting on here because right now this is about me and the person that reports to me right now, and we're going to have this training time, and sometimes people go, oh, there's another priority that popped up and I have to, sorry, can we reschedule? No, we're not going to reschedule. I have promised this time to this person. And
Yeah.
sometimes if people want to take you away from that, you might have to say, look, I can't, sorry. As soon as it's over, I'll be right there. I promise.
Like Peggy said, it's so important also. Well, one thing that may help you all to streamline some other things so you can focus on your employees and those relationships is the webinar that we did yesterday with Micah Gaudet. Did you watch that one, Angelica? I can't remember if you were in.
I did. That was great. All about AI and some exciting tools and opportunities there. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I'm going to put the link to that in the chat also, and I can include it in a follow-up email for you all because it's free to attend those Wednesday webinars. And so we have them publicly available. And the title of it is Unlocking Generative AI for Human Resources. So I feel like this group in particular might have some interest there. And maybe it helps to free up some time somewhere that you can dedicate, and reprioritize. So, so all of that to say, I'm so glad that you all were here. And I want to say a special, huge thank you to Angelica for sharing her time and wisdom with us. We appreciate all of the great work that Polco is doing out there. And if anyone has any questions for myself or Angelica, feel free to follow up after. And like I said, we'll send you that white paper. I think it's a white paper, right?
Yeah, I have an infographic that I put together. It's a 2-page infographic, so it's not going to take up all your time. And I will send you an email so that way you can have that data for yourself. And then, if you want to reach out to me, you can just reply to the email, or you can, right, Robert? 2 pages. It's got big pictures on it.
Pictures. That is pictures. This is so much easier.
If you want to learn more about Polco, you can head on over to polco.us, and that's our website. And, we're a bunch of research nerds and everything. So if you want to connect or you want to nerd out about public sector data, let me know. I'd love to keep in touch. I'm also on LinkedIn, so you can find me on there. But yeah, feel free to just reply to me on that email if you want to reach out, or if you're interested in doing this type of research for your own organization. We do that as well. So we're happy to help you.
Excellent. Well, thank you all again. Thank you again, Angelica, and I look forward to seeing everyone next month.
Thank you so much. Thanks,
Absolutely.
everybody. That was
Thanks.
fun.
Bye.